Hey folks, it's your boy Alonzo, the Godfather of West Coast Hip Hop, and today we have a very interesting show about something that's near and dear to my heart. I was raised with back in the day, okay? A lot of folks always ask me about gangsters back in the day and hood stuff and how things got started, and I decided to go back and grab somebody who was there alongside me, but he was on the other side of the tracks. Now, my guest today is a good friend of mine. In fact, he's my cousin. And he was right there in the very beginning. He was a lot more active than I was when it came down to gang activity. He gonna keep it real with us today. Now, people always talk about names like Puddin' and Tam and Lorenzo Bennett and Lil Vince and all the characters, all the brothers that was OG Pyru boys. But on the other side of the canal, there was another group of brothers that was kind of the rivals of some of those same names I just mentioned. Today, my brother, his old name, I got to get you his old name in case you, in case you called him Jerry back in the day, but his name was Askia Muwwakkil. Today, he's a holistic professional, raised in Compton, right there off of 129th and Grandee, and that's my guest today. We're going to talk about some real OG Crip and blood gang banging from the beginning stuff today. What's up, my brother?
How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Now you tell him, give him your story in a quick, brief synopsis.
My background?
Your background.
My background. I'm a holistic practitioner. First of all, I teach African history. Second of all, I grew up at a time period in Compton when all these gangs things started going on. But being a historian too of history, I'm gonna bring up certain points that you don't understand. Most people don't understand. Where should I start off at? Should we start off at the history of it? Let me tell you. Well, the Crips and the Bloods, when it came into Compton, we had it was the Crips and Pyru more or less, and then allegiance happened with there. I knew Lorenzo Bennett, Ralph Carter. I knew all the beginning of the Pyru. Well, really, we sat next to each other at El Segundo Elementary School. They lived on the west side of the canal. We lived on the east side of the canal. Well, what happened was we knew each other very well. We've been knowing each other since we were in the kindergarten. We were, but as we went into high school, then we had other elementary schools that were there, Carver Park and a few others, and they had other ones. We went to Willowbrook. They went to Vanguard. So we knew each other ever since we were in elementary school. When we got to high school, the Carver Park and other elementary schools that went to Willowbrook together, they didn't know each other when we got to Centennial.
Okay. So
now this is where you have conflict coming up. But we already had allegiance from elementary school, but then we have allegiance from the 7th to the 9th grade. This is where the gang came from. Now, one other misconception about the gang conflicts in L.A. Compton are really throughout the whole country. It doesn't necessarily mean, sometimes I used to hear reports there were 24,000 gang members in the city of Los Angeles or Compton. But when I was growing up, we didn't take membership cards. Nobody had a membership to a gang. Gang was that you had somebody on your street that might have been a gang affiliated, but you've been knowing that kid ever since elementary school. If somebody jumps on them, then they have a problem with you. So it wasn't no gang membership. Gang is a name that is really promoted the wrong way. It's more that I know these people and I live in a certain neighborhood. And just because I live there, you mess with my friend, I'm going to come after you. He's like a brother to me. He's like my cousin. He's my next door neighbor. You can't mess with him. But now if we fight, then I'm considered a gang member. I'm not a gang member. I just live in a certain neighborhood where there's a gang affiliation.
Interesting.
Now, what's really interesting is that gangs is never that you really loyal to the gang. A lot of times, if your parents get evicted out of one apartment, you move on the other side of town, you belong to another gang. Not that you're there. There is no bylaw. There's no pledge of allegiance to the gang in the United States of America.
Wait. You didn't get jumped in like that? You didn't get jumped into the gang back in the day?
Did I get jumped into the gang? I lived in a certain area. I lived on near Wilmington.
Okay.
We had the Front Boys. We had Carver Park Boys.
Okay.
We had all these people. That on the west side of Compton, it was affiliation. It wasn't that we were a part of a gang.
Okay, right.
See, I wasn't a part of a gang. I used to wear a earring in my ear, but it was a clip-on. So when I hit the door, I'll take the earring out of my ear.
Why?
Because my mother wasn't going to go for that.
Okay. Now your mom was a single mom.
Uh-huh.
You had brothers.
Uh-huh.
You was more afraid of your mom than you was the gang.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't, I mean, I knew everybody. It was a culture that was being started. Now, a lot of times the gangs in L.A., and we'll say the gangs in L.A., not just Compton, a lot of them, like when the Crips first came out, they were politically.
Right.
They were involved in politics. Remember, it was a conspiracy in America to get rid of any black influence in America.
Okay.
So all of a sudden you had the pro and tail
Right.
that they tried to destroy the Black Panthers and the us.
Right.
2 years later, the gangs came in.
Right.
Okay?
Right. I remember that.
So, I mean, we had places in the city where you could buy guns at 14 years old. Right there on Western.
Oh, Western Surplus.
Yeah. You could buy a gun. So you're going to tell me the government didn't know a 14-year-old kid was walking in to buy a gun? So we have to understand, us destroying each other is part of the system too. It didn't happen.
It works for them.
Yeah,
it works for them.
You got rid of the Panther. Now look at the difference between the Panthers and the gang. The average Panther was 17 years old.
Okay.
The black movement of the 60s was only 17, 18 years old.
Okay.
Look, Dr. King was 26. Malcolm was 28. H. Rap Brown was 22. Angela Davis was 19 going on 20. Stokely Carmichael was 19 going on 20. Fred Hampton, running the Chicago branch of the Black Panthers, was 19 going on 20. So it was a plot. When we start talking about black people working together, getting more culturally event,
right.
They had to get rid of that type of movement. Then the gang. So you could have a Tookie or Stanley Williams, that was his name.
Right.
Tookie could be around for 30 years. Crips been running, and the Bloods have been around active
40 years, 50
40 years. You got rid of the Black Panthers, the us, and any organization that had to deal with a political agenda, you got rid of them in 4 years.
That's big.
We can't say it was by accident that these particular things happened. It was on purpose.
So everything that was designed to help us was annihilated, and everything that was meant to destroy us was allowed to flourish.
Yeah.
Think about that, folks.
Yeah, and now we look at this. The longest running movie in the exploitation movie, black exploitation of the 60s. It's very interesting that one of the longest running movies that was out at that time was Superfly.
Right.
It was #1 for a year and a half.
Was it?
Yeah. Now, Spook Who Sat by the Door, which was a political movie, lasted for 2 weeks.
Right.
And was taken out the theaters.
Right.
Because it talked about a brother that worked for the CIA and taught gang guerrilla warfare and became political. That was taken off the screen in 2 weeks. But Superfly the Pimp lasted for a year and a half. Now, one of the most political brothers of the 60s, as so far as musicians go, artists go, was Curtis Mayfield.
Right.
He wrote all kinds of music about blacker than blue and things that
all
black people need to
all the civil rights music.
But then he was chosen to be the theme song to Superfly.
Right.
So we have to understand this is not by accident that we learn to kill each other or hurt each other. This makes the system work. You start working together and start buying from your own, then somebody ain't getting paid. And it ain't in our community. They come in our community to make money.
Let's go back for a minute.
Yes.
Going back to the 70s. What were the kind of conflicts you guys experienced with the... you guys fought the Pyrus, or, I mean, you guys had conflict with the Pyrus. Were there conflicts back there? What kind of conflicts did you have?
We had stupid conflicts. Look, we were only 15 years old. This ain't no grown man stuff going on. This ain't no manhood stuff going on. We talking about kids. We're teenagers. We're 15 years old. But how do we get into a point of having access to guns, military?
Right.
There was a shipment of guns. All of a sudden, that was military that got stopped off of San Pedro.
I heard all about this.
Yeah, got a truckload of military guns that somebody from the armory that just happened to stop and watch. And everybody and start affiliating guns. I have been out when I seen Caucasian guys, white guys pull up with and open their trunk and get all kind of guns. See, if we talk about history, I always thought it would be a great commercial. A commercial of a guy receiving a medal from the Ku Klux Klan. Because if you look at the Ku Klux Klan, ain't never killed as many black people as gang warfare have.
I've said the same thing for decades.
Never have.
Never will.
So it's a culture, and you're taught to walk away, wear a certain kind of clothes, prison type of mindset. So this is not by accident. Everything is by design. One of the greatest, one of the biggest presidents in America was Harriet Truman. Y'all might know about him, but he said chaos and control is by design. And if you think you got a friend in Washington, you better buy you a dog.
All right, folks. My guest today is my man Askia Muwwakkil, straight out the streets of Compton. You were from Carver Park. What you
I grew up. See.
We got to affiliate you with something. That's what we do. No. Go ahead.
You would say in that area we had affiliation with Crips because of the fact that we knew them from the 7th grade to the 10th grade. We had, but our friends were from Pyru because we went to elementary school from kindergarten to the 6th grade.
How did that affect y'all interaction when y'all had conflict? Did y'all still fight these cats?
You know what's so interesting that you asked that? Because I remember one time I was fighting. We were in a tussle. The Crips and the Pyru was in a tussle. This is at Centennial when I was in the 10th grade. And we were in a tussle. And I had, we used to wear brims and khaki pants. That was our dress.
Right.
That was the khaki pants, the brims, and some 501 jeans.
Yeah. Iron to the teeth.
Iron to the teeth. That was the look of youth in the game. So we're fighting. My brim is kind of down. And we're fighting at Centennial. And this guy was coming after me with a sledgehammer. It hit me in my head. And I lift up the brim, and it was Ralph Carter.
Wow.
And he would not hit me because he knew me ever since elementary school.
Ralph Carter was the brother of the same guy that Suge ran over, Terry Carter. True story. They was blood brothers.
He was a nice guy. I knew Lil Vince ever since we were in elementary school together. He used to tell jokes all the time. He was a jokester at school.
Right.
So a lot of times we were just innocent kids that got caught up in the culture. Not only of gang culture, but the promotion of gang culture through television shows. You heard about exploitation movie, Goldie, Superfly, Sweetback. They glorified us as criminals and pimps and hoes. One year we were in 1968, we were in dashikis with big naturals, power to the people. And one year when Superfly came up, we were wearing Coke spoons around our neck with maxi coats on.
I did that.
We did it.
It used to be lying.
Yeah. This is what it was. So in one year, we weren't really grounded in our culture. So we think our culture is this violent thing against each other. On TV they used to say, it used to be, hey, my brother, hey, my sister.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you start hearing shows on TV say, you ain't my brother, you ain't my sister.
Right.
Anything to make us become self-destructive became a part of this culture here.
It was funny, man, because back in the day, because we are first cousins, okay? And for years, we was, hey, what's up, cuz? What's up, cuz? What's up, cuz? And it wasn't until Dad met the 80s, people start, what's up with that cuz thing? I'm like, huh? That's my cousin. It was really odd, because I was telling some youngsters the other day that even back in the day, you was considered, if you was a young man, you was a young blood. Okay, it was young. What's up, young blood?
Yeah.
You know,
hey, what's going on, Chief?
How you doing? What's up, young blood? You know, and that was those were truly terms of endearment. Had no gang affiliation whatsoever. And when did the red and blue thing come into play that you can recall?
Well, you got the Democrats and Republicans wearing red and blue too. so those were two colors. I mean, you go back to the Confederates, the British, and the
Right.
Yankees.
Well,
they weren't red and blue. Why is the red and blue? I always show opposition.
I think that the red and blue actually came from Centennial, from the Compton area, because Centennial was red and Compton was blue, and that was always a major conflict in the CPT.
Well, if you
I could be wrong.
Well, if you look at the Bloods is a combination of a whole lot of different gangs. The Chain Gang,
who are the Chain Gang?
The Chain Gang used to be running in Inglewood. You had the Pyru.
Okay.
You had the Anthem Park Boys.
Right.
And you had other little gangs that the Crips used to pick on. They all came together and formed the Bloods. So the word blood comes from that a whole lot of little gangs came together and said, and then we could compete with the Crips with the Crips. You see? But you had these kind of things going on. Like two of the main leaders of the Crips was Tookie, Stanley Williams, and Raymond Washington was the East Side.
Now, Raymond Washington you got to be a triple OG to know who Raymond Washington was.
Raymond Washington used to like to fight all. You ever seen somebody just love to fight?
No.
That was Raymond Washington. He could fight himself if the mirror wouldn't win. He just loved to fight. So you had him. You had.
What would Jamil come in at?
Jamil was one. See, now we're talking about the West Side. We talking about with Washington High. All of them come from Washington. Barefoot Pookie. Raymond Washington. Michael Concepcion. Tookie. Stanley and Tookie was the same thing. But see, all we did back then, and it wasn't a lot of killing at that time. It was a lot of waistline coats taking.
A lot of coats taking.
So we took, gangs at that time didn't want to kill you. They just wanted to take your
or your hat.
Or your hat.
If you had an ace deuce, if you wasn't with the right enough fellas, you wasn't gonna wear that thing home.
Yeah, you had khaki pants. You had the 501 jeans. You had the khaki. What was the shoes called?
Crocker sacks.
And a knit shirt, and that was part of the game. But see, in that time period, we still had morals. Which means that if it was an older person crossing and you in the middle of some gang stuff, you stop all your gang activity to let the older person go by.
And your mama had you.
Yeah. You did not act like a fool when you had older people around you. We still had morality. And there were certain codes of conduct that you didn't do. But killing somebody, I mean, it happened, but it wasn't something that you did. The reputation you would get by Tookie had a reputation of not just killing, which he did do, but he could knock people out. He had 24 inch arms that he could knock people out.
Right. And
even guys would take advantage. If Tookie hit you and you didn't fall down and get knocked out, you was a bad guy.
Yeah.
And you get a reputation
for taking a punch.
Taking a punch by Tookie. I mean, that kind of stuff.
Well, you know what? And before I saw this dude, I seen Tookie several times as I got older, and it was all kind of rumors about Tookie. Guy shot him with a 22 in the chest. He pulled the bullets out, beat the nigga's ass. I mean, these guys became street legends, and you had guys like Puddin' from Pyru, who was crazy, and you ran across these cats. And you realize they were just regular dudes when you ran across them. You never saw, if you didn't see them in their gang mode, they was regular dudes. They laugh and joke, kick it. Yeah. And, it wasn't no big deal. But if you saw them in gang mode, it was a different character.
Yeah. Weights was the thing. Tookie and them, we used to walk around weights around their neck.
Weights
from gyms.
Okay.
Walk around with 50, 100 pounds. Around.
I ain't never heard that before.
Yeah, they did. So see, it became a whole different culture. It wasn't about just killing. That's what we was. But see, at the same time, you didn't have no Boy Scouts or no Girl Scouts in the community either. You see, so you kids need something to do.
Right.
And after the Panthers and the US fell, then all of a sudden gang activity. If you notice, before the last gang movement in Los Angeles was in the early 60s. when you had gangs like the Slawsons, the Businessmen, the Gladiators.
Right.
So between 63 and 68, 69, there was no active gang activity in Los Angeles. Because who took that void was the Panthers and the Us. We became very political.
Right.
But that politics was too strong for American society, and white society. Right. So you had to eliminate that movement and create chaos again. Now, if you go in before gangs, the Gladiators, and the Businessmen, you're going to go back into the late 50s when black people started moving from the South up north, and you had the farmers. Why did the farmers wear? They used to wear
overalls.
Yeah, those were the farmers because they were coming from Mississippi, Alabama, and you had gang in L.A. or especially in Compton called the Spook Hunters. The Spook Hunters was a white gang that used to, when black people started moving into Los Angeles and especially Compton, they would fight them. So the farmers and the gangs that were coming from the young kids around the South had to go for protection. So they created gangs there. So gangs, in a lot of cases, their initial objective was not to be violent, but it was self-protection.
Was it the drugs? The gang sell drugs back then?
Nope.
So it was just strictly for protection. It wasn't about money.
It was protection. It was more for protection.
Now that goes to show you when the 80s came around and they dropped the drugs in the community for the first time, gangs have a financial motivation to be violent, and that's when I think most of the violence came into the gang activity. Because we fought. I mean, I never really gangbanged, but like you said, if you're from some neighborhood, you had to defend yourself, and we fought shit. Most of the fights I had was from the guys around the corner on Jarvis. Okay, I had more fights with my neighbors on Jarvis than anybody else.
Yeah, now say for instance, like you were saying on Jarvis,
right?
We didn't know them in school. They didn't go to the same elementary school with us.
Okay.
So they affiliate the Askia elementary kids connected with Jarvis kids. What junior high school did you go to?
I went to St. Albert's. I went to Vanguard.
No. What elementary?
St. Albert's in Compton.
Well, see, he was a money boy, but I'm talking about if he was public school. See, he had to want to bring a private.
If I would have went to Mark Twain if Mark Twain was still open.
See, we didn't know the kids on my side. We didn't even know what Mark Twain existed.
Right, Mark Twain was. I went to Mark Twain for kindergarten, and they shut it down shortly after that. Yeah. And I think I don't know. They didn't go to Avalon Gardens. I don't know where they went for elementary.
Who?
I don't know what it went to my elementary in my neighborhood. I can't tell you.
No, what's the one behind El Segundo? I mean, off of McKinley Wadsworth behind there.
That was
Mark Twain.
Mark Twain.
Yeah. See, that's where it comes from. But like I said, in most time when gangs or kids are affiliated with each other, they came for peace.
We talking OG.
We talking about old
back
time.
In the day. Compton
time.
gang, Compton. We talking about the roots of gang activity here, folks. I mean, we talking about when it was very, very little killing. It was, you had to be able to thump. Okay, that was the word we used back then. If you couldn't thump, you couldn't be in the gang. And the gangs it may have been 10 cats from a neighborhood, so-called a gang, but again, if you messed with anybody in that circle, you still had to deal with these 10 cats plus.
Yeah, that's what the gang was. So it wasn't a culture of killing. See, you have to understand, gangs are what do you call it? Glorified through the media. You know, it was like, I remember watching the what was the movie with Ice Cube?
I know you're talking about Boys in the Hood.
Boys in the Hood, and it was such a great movie to me because I knew that experience. But I was telling I was dealing with some attorneys, and they said, well, that couldn't exist like that. I said, you don't live in my neighborhood.
Right.
That was my neighbor. That was my neighborhood. I could see that going on. But conflict was not necessary. But this is it was promoted through America. See, back then, during the time, and isn't it amazing? In my generation before, the area was called, y'all call it the hood. They called us the ghetto. We were the ghetto. The Mexicans were the barrios.
Right.
You see, we had names, and these names are always identified from people outside of our community, never from the community itself. And they expect certain things. So music started talking about power to the people, free One of the sayings that we used to say, what, power to the people, free Huey.
Free Huey.
Huey P. Newton, who was head of the Black Panthers, 23-year-old kid. All of a sudden, these names are changed to become, like the violence start increasing with dope coming in, cocaine coming in. They even had a hearing in the U.S. government, the Contras.
Right.
Remember the Contras?
Right.
What was his name? What was the white boy?
Reagan. Was it Reagan?
That was Reagan.
Oh, Oliver North.
Oliver North. Bringing cocaine into the community. All of a sudden, gangs came from one area and two more were violent and became money. And kids were so stupid, they riding down the street with a 450 SL Mercedes, and when the police would run their license plate, they live on 68th and Gage. You knew they were going to get picked up sooner or later.
Right.
So we have to understand nothing happens in our community. The self-hatred is by design. We never called each other the N-word as much back then.
We did. It was always in closed company. It was, it was very, you had to be really pissed off because somebody a nigga back in the day.
Well, back in the day, if a sister called another sister a bitch, that was a fight.
That was a fight. True fight.
Now you can sit up here and play with each other about calling each other bitches.
Right.
What people do that? If you had an African game show like Jeopardy, we wouldn't even have enough contestants for 10 weeks. The show would be canceled. So, see, we dealing with things. We don't understand. This is not by accident for you not to love your brother next door and not to see him, or you don't love your sister. This is not by accident, my people. This is all by design. But gangs in the early years, Alonzo, when you first started out in hip hop, you remember when Martin Lawrence and them used to make house party?
Right.
The shows were about house party. Even when you started your group, y'all would make innocent songs.
Right.
It was innocent. It wasn't about no bitch, no hoe, no.
Well, understand this.
Let's kill you.
In the movie House Party, okay, I use this example all the time when I speak. In the movie House Party, there was Martin Lawrence. There was only 3 gangbangers in the whole movie, and that was full force. Okay, you had all them people, and it was very, very colorful. It was all upbeat, the whole 9 yards, and the gangbangers were minimum. There was only 3 of them in the whole damn movie. Same year, you get Boys in the Hood. It was only 3 good guys in the whole goddamn movie there.
Yeah.
The whole thing flipped over.
Don't think it's not by design, people. It is all by design. It is not for us to get along. The slave master slept good. You know when the slave master slept good? When you and your woman were arguing with each other. When he saw the lights on or the candles on in your slave quarters, he could sleep real good because they ain't getting along. So it is made for us not to get along. See, curse words, why do communities that curse get the worst communities?
I don't know.
You call a certain vibe, a certain spirit in the thing when you gotta look at somebody. Oh man, see that bee over there? See that bee? Oh, she's so fine. And then 2 years later, when you hook up with her, she become a bee. Now you're saying the bee is crazy, but you called her into existence. See, we have to understand the powers to be. This ain't by accident. Okay. Another question about the old days.
But you know what? I know one day we were talking. He saved me from going to the penitentiary one time. We was at Liquor Rabbit, and I was gonna cut that dude with that bottle. It's because see, he and I, we go back 45 years as hanging together, and because we had a tight knit family with about 3 or 4 of us, we ran together on a regular basis, and we kept each other out of stupidity. Now he was more gang affiliated than he was active. So he knew all the guys on my side of town, all the guys that I was having problems with. And I remember he came to my house one day and you told me, oh, so-and-so, he can't fight. If he gave you a problem, let me know. That was Don Turner. Okay? You came to my house, looking like mini shaft, hair out to here. It wasn't the guy you see over here. Hair out to here, trench coat on, the whole 9 yards. And he was ready to, hey, man, that's my cousin. And I tell people all the time, if you were back then, you could make a phone call or, hey man, I'm having a problem with so and so, and somebody of his rank would check him, because usually it wasn't allowed for gangsters to mess with civilians. If you was a non-gangbanger, it was almost in violation for you to jump on them unless he or she did something, especially to you, that was called you out or whatever the case may be, usually they wouldn't mess with us that much. Okay, if you were not affiliated or not active, and they call you a punk or whatever the case may be, pat your pockets. But for the most part, unless you had on a leather jacket, you pretty much got to pass.
Yeah, well, see, this is why it was being influenced. If you look at Centennial, back in the 60s, it was one of the top-rated high schools in the state of California.
Wow.
Zach Hine was principal then.
Okay.
It was top-rated school in that year. But see, education has never been pushed in our school system when the gangs came around. All of a sudden, look at school now. If you win the spelling bee, you get a medal this big. If you win the basketball, you get a trophy this big. How come education and athletics is never put in the same way? By using your brain.